You married me to save your empire, didn't you?
I married you to save myself, and somewhere along the way, you became the only truth I have left.
My name is Amelia Hart. 2 years ago, I signed a contract with the devil to save my father from prison. I became the wife of a powerful man the world admires. But no one knows he's hiding a secret that could destroy everything. What I never expected was that the true cost of that contract would be my own heart.
Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, hit the like button, and subscribe if you've ever sacrificed everything for family.
The paintbrush slipped from my fingers when I saw the number on my phone screen. $60 million. My father owed $60 million to Lawson Pharmaceutical. I stared at the canvas before me, a half-finished portrait of a woman reaching toward light as my world crumbled. The small apartment that doubled as my studio suddenly felt like it was closing in. Paint tubes and brushes scattered across every surface seemed to mock me with their normalcy. "Amelia, honey, I'm so sorry." Dad's voice cracked through the phone. "The hospital project. They're saying I violated the contract. They want everything, and if I can't pay..." His voice trailed off, but I knew what came next. Prison. 3 days later, I stood before a glass tower that scraped the Manhattan sky. Lawson Pharmaceutical headquarters. My reflection in the polished doors looked small, insignificant, exactly how I felt. The elevator ride to the 40th floor lasted an eternity. When the doors opened, a severe-looking assistant gestured me forward without a word. My worn flats clicked against marble floors that probably cost more than my annual rent. Gabriel Lawson didn't look up when I entered his office. He signed documents with practiced efficiency, his profile sharp against the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. At 38, he possessed the kind of cold beauty that belonged in museums. Untouchable, distant, perfect. "Miss Hart," his voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Sit." I remained standing. "You're destroying my family." Finally, those steel-gray eyes met mine. Something flickered there. Surprise? Amusement? It vanished before I could tell. "Your father destroyed himself." He set down his pen with deliberate precision. "I'm merely collecting what's owed." My hands trembled, but I kept my voice steady. "He's a good man who made a mistake. Surely there's..." "I don't deal in mercy, Miss Hart. I deal in contracts." He stood, moving to the window. The winter sun cast harsh shadows across his face. "However, I find myself in need of something you can provide." My stomach twisted. "I won't..." "A wife." He turned, studying me like I was a particularly interesting specimen. 24 months, a legal marriage, public appearances, living in my home. In exchange, I'll erase your father's debt and ensure he never sees the inside of a cell." The room spun. I gripped the back of a chair to stay upright. "You're insane." "My grandfather's will requires me to be married by 40 to inherit the family trust. $2 billion. His smile held no warmth. "Your father's freedom for 2 years of your life seems rather generous." "Generous?" Anger flared, hot and sharp. "You're buying me like..." "I'm offering a business arrangement." He returned to his desk, pulling out a thick folder. "You'll have your own wing of the estate, a generous monthly allowance, and complete freedom to pursue your art. All I require is discretion and cooperation in public." He slid the contract across the mahogany surface. The pages blurred through my tears, but certain phrases jumped out. Non-disclosure agreement, public appearances required, dissolution after 24 months. My father, he doesn't know about this? No one knows, and no one will, unless you violate the terms. He glanced at his watch, a casual gesture that felt like a slap. "You have 60 seconds to decide." 60 seconds? My voice cracked. 55 now. I thought of Dad's calloused hands, how they shook when he told me about the lawsuit, of Mom's tears, of my younger brother Ethan, who'd just started college. 30 seconds. The pen felt like lead in my hand. Each letter of my signature carved away a piece of my soul. When I finished, Gabriel took the contract without ceremony, locking it in his desk drawer. "Excellent." He pressed a button on his phone. "Marcus, inform the legal team that the Hart situation is resolved. Full dismissal of all charges." Just like that. My family's nightmare ended with the click of a drawer. "The wedding will be in 3 weeks. he continued, as if discussing weather. My assistant will coordinate the details. You'll move into the estate immediately. I stood on unsteady legs. Is that all? For the first time, something human flickered across his face. He moved closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. Welcome to my world, Mrs. Lawson. His breath ghosted against my ear. Try not to fall in love with me. It would complicate things. I fled his office, my heels clicking frantically against marble, running from the devil I'd just sold my soul to. 3 weeks. That's all it took to plan the wedding of the century. I stood before a full-length mirror in the Hamptons estate, drowning in white silk and lace. The dress cost more than most people's houses. I'd overheard the wedding planner mention 6 figures. My reflection looked like a stranger. Hollow eyes rimmed with expensive makeup, hair twisted into an elaborate style that made my scalp ache. 5 minutes, dear. Gabriel's Aunt Patricia bustled in, diamonds glittering at her throat. She'd been kind enough, but her eyes held the same question everyone's did. What does he see in her? Through the window, I watched guests arrive in a parade of luxury cars. Senators, CEOs, celebrities, people who graced magazine covers and influenced global markets. My side of the venue would be embarrassingly sparse. My parents, Ethan, a handful of art school friends who looked as overwhelmed as I felt. A knock interrupted my spiral. Come in. Marcus Cole entered, Gabriel's personal lawyer. Tall and distinguished, with kind eyes that seemed at odds with his profession. He closed the door carefully behind him. Miss Hart, forgive me, soon to be Mrs. Lawson. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. I shouldn't be doing this, but he pressed it into my hands. If you ever need an exit strategy, everything you need to know is in here. Don't open it unless you're certain. Before I could respond, he was gone. I shoved the envelope into my clutch just as the wedding march began. My father appeared at my elbow, his rented tuxedo slightly too big. You sure about this, sweetheart? No. Yes, Dad, I'm sure. The walk down the aisle stretched endlessly. Hundreds of eyes tracked my movement, whispers following in my wake. I heard she's an artist. Her father's company went bankrupt, obviously a gold digger. Gabriel waited at the altar like a dark prince from a twisted fairy tale. His tuxedo fit him perfectly, of course. When our eyes met, his expression remained unreadable. We might have been signing any business document, not pledging our lives to each other. The ceremony blurred past. I repeated vows that felt like lies, accepted a ring that felt like a shackle. When the minister pronounced us husband and wife, Gabriel's kiss was brief, perfunctory, a performance for our audience. The reception assaulted my senses. Champagne that cost more per bottle than my monthly groceries, food I couldn't pronounce, conversations in 3 different languages. I smiled until my face hurt, accepted congratulations that felt like condolences. Dance with me. Gabriel appeared at my elbow during a brief moment alone. It wasn't a request. On the dance floor, he moved with practiced grace. His hand on my waist remained professional, distant. We must have looked perfect. The photos would certainly suggest a fairy tale. You're doing well? He murmured, surprising me. I feel like a fraud. Good. That means you're playing the part correctly. He spun me expertly. Though you might try looking slightly less miserable. We're supposedly in love. How do you do it? The question escaped before I could stop it. Pretend so easily? His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Practice. Victoria Hale chose that moment to interrupt, gliding over in a dress that probably cost more than the wedding cake. Blonde, beautiful, and radiating the kind of confidence that came from never having to question your place in the world. Gabriel, darling. She air-kissed his cheeks, ignoring me entirely. Such a lovely wedding, though rather sudden. Victoria. His voice could have frozen hell. She finally acknowledged my existence with a smile sharp as glass. You must be the artist. How bohemian. Her gaze swept over me like I was a stain on expensive fabric. Enjoy it while it lasts, dear. Gabriel's attention span for new toys is notoriously short. Enough! Gabriel's arm tightened around my waist, the first real emotion he'd shown all day. Victoria laughed, a tinkling sound that set my teeth on edge. Just offering friendly advice. After all, I know him better than anyone. She leaned closer to me, her voice dropping. He told you this was just business, didn't he? At least he was honest about that. She glided away, leaving poison in her wake. Ignore her, Gabriel said quietly. But I couldn't, because she was right. This was business. I was a transaction, a signature on a contract, a means to an end. That night, Gabriel showed me to my wing of the estate, an entire floor with a stunning view of the ocean. Your studio, he said, opening double doors to reveal a space filled with natural light, professional easels, and every art supply I could imagine. I had it prepared based on your work. If anything's missing, tell Marcus. For a moment, I forgot to hate him. Thank you, I whispered. He paused at the door. We share breakfast at 7, dinner at 8 when I'm in town, public appearances as required, otherwise your time is your own. Gabriel? He turned back. Why did you really choose me? Something flickered across his face, there and gone. Good night, Amelia. I spent my wedding night alone in a king-sized bed, clutching Marcus's envelope and wondering what I'd gotten myself into. 6 weeks into my marriage, I discovered Gabriel Lawson was haunted. It started with small things, the way he'd stare at my paintings when he thought I wasn't looking, how his fingers would hover over the piano keys in the music room but never play, the books on his nightstand, poetry collections and art history texts that seemed at odds with the cold businessman I'd married. One night, unable to sleep, I wandered to my studio. Manhattan glittered beyond the windows as I lost myself in oils and turpentine. I was so absorbed that I didn't hear him enter. You paint like you're possessed. I spun, brush raised like a weapon. Gabriel leaned against the doorframe, looking almost human in worn jeans and a simple t-shirt. Without his armor of expensive suits, he seemed younger, more vulnerable. Can't sleep? I asked. Rarely. He moved into the room, drawn to a canvas I'd hidden behind the others. May I? I nodded, watching as he revealed my latest work, a man drowning in shadows while reaching for a pinpoint of light. I'd painted it without conscious thought, letting my hands express what my mind couldn't process. His expression shifted, walls crumbling for just a moment. It's extraordinary. It's probably about you. The admission surprised us both. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. I'm flattered you think I'm reaching for light. Aren't you? He turned away, examining my brushes with unnecessary focus. I wanted to be an artist once, before I understood that dreams are luxuries the Lawson heir couldn't afford. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Is it? He faced me again. Sadder than a woman selling herself to save her father? The words should have stung, but his tone held no malice, only a strange understanding. We're both trapped, I said softly. The difference is, you still believe in escape. He gestured to my paintings. It's in every stroke. Hope. Even in the darkness, you paint hope. What do you believe in? Contracts, obligations, the inevitable disappointment of human nature. He picked up a sketch from my desk, my mother's hands, captured during one of their visits. Your parents came by yesterday while you were at the gallery. I know, Maria told me. I watched him study the drawing. They worry about me. They should. But again, no cruelty in it, just fact. A package arrived the next morning, a set of brushes that looked ancient and valuable. The note was unsigned, but I knew. That afternoon, another delivery. Pigments in tiny vials, colors I'd only read about in art history books. By evening, a leather journal appeared on my easel. I opened it to find delicate sketches, a woman's face repeated in various poses, always turned slightly away. The style was unpracticed but showed raw talent. In the corner of one page, a date, 1987. Gabriel found me crying over that journal. You weren't supposed to... He stopped, seeing my tears. What's wrong? This is your mother. He went rigid. How did you... The eyes. You have her eyes. I traced the sketches gently. She was an artist. Was. The word fell between us like a stone. What happened to her? She left, when I was 7. His voice was carefully neutral. Grandfather made sure she never came back. Gabriel, don't. He reached for the journal, but I pulled it against my chest. These are beautiful. I should nothing. That part of me died with her abandonment. He turned to leave. She didn't abandon you. The words tumbled out. A mother who draws her child this many times, who captures every expression with such love. She didn't leave by choice. He froze in the doorway. When he looked back, his eyes were wild. You don't know anything about it. I know about love and loss and the lies we tell ourselves to survive them. Something shattered in his expression. For a heartbeat, I saw the 7-year-old boy who'd lost his mother, the teenager who'd buried his dreams, the man who'd built walls so high he'd forgotten what lay beyond them. Then it was gone. The mask slammed back into place. Dinner's at 8, he said, and left. But he didn't ask for the journal back. That night, my phone rang. An unknown number. Mrs. Lawson? A woman's voice, elderly and urgent. You don't know me, but I knew Gabriel's mother. You're in danger. The Lawson family, they destroy anyone who threatens their control. Be careful. Trust no one, especially... The line went dead. I sat in my studio until dawn, surrounded by paintings of shadows and light, wondering if I was falling for a man who might destroy me or if I was the one who might save him. The Whitmore Gallery opening should have been my triumph. Instead, it became my confession. This is unprecedented, David Whitmore had said, surveying my work. Your evolution in just 3 months. It's like you've found an entirely new voice. He wasn't wrong. Since marrying Gabriel, my art had transformed. Gone were the safe, pretty landscapes that used to pay my bills. In their place, raw emotion splashed across canvas, shadows dancing with light, pain and beauty intertwined. The centerpiece made my heart race every time I looked at it. A massive oil painting of a man trapped behind invisible bars, his face obscured but his posture screaming silent agony. I'd painted it in a frenzy after finding Gabriel's mother's journal, barely stopping to eat or sleep. Opening night arrived too quickly. I stood before a mirror in a black dress Gabriel had sent over, trying to calm my nerves. You look beautiful. He appeared in the doorway, devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo. You came. Of course, we're married. But something in his eyes suggested it was more than obligation. The gallery buzzed with Manhattan's elite. My pieces were selling, red dots appearing next to frames faster than I could track. I should have been ecstatic. Instead, I kept glancing at Gabriel as he studied each painting with an intensity that made my stomach flutter. He stopped at a small piece tucked in a corner, hands reaching through water, one pulling the other up or down, impossible to tell which. When did you paint this? His voice was carefully controlled. Last week, after we'd almost kissed in the kitchen, when he'd bandaged my hand after I'd cut it on a broken frame, after he'd held my fingers so gently I'd forgotten to breathe. I need air, he said abruptly, moving toward the exit. That's when I saw her, Victoria, holding court near my centerpiece, champagne flute in hand and malice in her smile. It's him, isn't it? She announced to her circle, loud enough to carry. Gabriel, I'd recognize that posture anywhere. She turned to a reporter. How fascinating that she's turned her husband into art. Though I suppose when the marriage is just business, you need to find inspiration somewhere. The crowd's attention shifted. Whispers rippled through the room. Someone raised a camera. Gabriel had stopped near the door, his back to the room, shoulders tense. You're absolutely right, I heard myself say, moving to stand beside the painting. The room fell silent. It is my husband. Gasps. More cameras. But you're wrong about the rest. My voice grew stronger. This isn't about business or contracts or whatever story you're spinning. This is about a man who thinks he has to carry the world alone, who builds walls so high he's forgotten there's sky above them. Gabriel turned slowly, his expression unreadable. I kept going, words pouring out like paint from a tube. I've watched him pore over charity proposals at 3 a.m., anonymously funding art programs in schools that can't afford supplies. I've seen him stop board meetings to take calls from the elderly security guard whose grandson is sick. He thinks no one notices, but I do. My eyes found his across the room. This painting isn't about a trapped man. It's about someone so afraid of his own capacity for goodness that he's convinced himself he's a monster. But monsters don't keep their mother's sketches in a locked drawer. They don't learn their wife's coffee order after one morning. They don't stand in doorways at 2 a.m. watching her paint just to make sure she's okay. Victoria's smile had frozen, twisted into something ugly. So yes, I concluded. I painted my husband because someone needed to see him. Really see him, even if he can't see himself. The silence stretched, taut as a canvas. Then someone started clapping. Others joined in, and suddenly the room erupted in applause. But I only cared about one person's reaction. Gabriel crossed the room in quick strides, the crowd parting before him. He stopped inches away, his eyes burning with something I couldn't name. "You impossible woman," he breathed. Then his hands framed my face, and he kissed me. Not the perfunctory kiss from our wedding. This was raw, desperate, real. His lips moved against mine like a drowning man finding air. I melted into him, forgetting the cameras, the crowd, everything but the feel of him finally letting me in. When we broke apart, the room had erupted in excited chatter and camera flashes. "Take me home," I whispered against his lips. "Amelia, please." He grabbed my hand, pulling me through the crowd. In the car, he held me against him, his heart racing under my palm. "You defended me," he said into my hair. "Someone had to." His arms tightened. "I'm going to ruin you." "Maybe I'll ruin you first." We drove through the night in silence, both knowing everything had changed. The contract was just paper now. What lived between us had become something far more dangerous, something real. I discovered I was pregnant on a Tuesday morning, 3 minutes before Victoria Hale destroyed our world. The 2 pink lines stared back at me, impossible to misinterpret. My hands shook as I set the test on the marble counter. Joy and terror warred in my chest. Joy because despite everything, I'd fallen completely in love with my husband. Terror because I had no idea if he felt the same. 3 months had passed since the gallery opening. 3 months of stolen kisses, shared silences, and a tenderness from Gabriel that felt like watching ice melt in spring. He still hadn't said the words, but his actions spoke volumes. The way he pulled me close during thunderstorms, knowing they reminded me of Dad's accident when I was 12. How he'd filled my studio with fresh flowers every Monday. The poems he left on my pillow, written in his careful script. I was rehearsing how to tell him when the doorbell rang. Maria was out, so I answered it myself, still clutching the pregnancy test box behind my back. Victoria stood on our doorstep, but not the polished socialite I knew. This Victoria looked wild, designer suit wrinkled, makeup smeared, eyes glittering with something unhinged. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me. I'm not here for him. I'm here for you." She whirled to face me in the foyer. "Do you know who Raymond Lawson is?" "Gabriel's grandfather. He died 15 years ago." Her laugh was brittle. "That's what they want you to think. He's alive, Amelia. Very much alive. And he's coming." The pregnancy test box slipped from my fingers. "That's impossible." "Is it?" She pulled out her phone, showing me a grainy photo, an elderly man in shadows, but the resemblance to Gabriel was unmistakable. "Taken last week in Switzerland. He's been running Lawson Pharma's darkest operations from the shadows. The illegal drug trials, the covered-up deaths, the bribes to FDA officials. All him." My knees weakened. I sank onto the entrance bench. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Gabriel knew." Her smile was vicious. "He's known for years. Why do you think he married you? Your leverage, sweetheart. A pretty shield to hold up when the authorities come knocking. The innocent wife who knew nothing." "You're lying." "Am I?" She sat beside me, fake sympathy oozing from every pore. "Ask him about Project Revival. Ask him about the 17 people who died testing cardiac drugs in Romania. Ask him why he really needed to marry so quickly." My mind raced, remembering Marcus's envelope, still hidden in my jewelry box. The strange phone call warning me about the Lawsons. Gabriel's insistence on a contract marriage. "He's using you," Victoria continued. "Just like he used me. Except I was smart enough to get out before—" She stopped, eyes widening at something behind me. "Before what, Victoria?" Gabriel's voice could have frozen hell. He stood in the doorway, still in his running clothes, eyes deadly. "Before you helped my grandfather fake his death? Before you laundered money through your father's hotels?" Victoria shot to her feet. You said you loved me. I was 23 and stupid. He moved into the room, positioning himself between Victoria and me. What did he promise you to come here? Money, power, or just the satisfaction of hurting me? Everything I've built is crumbling because of your FBI deal, she screamed. You think you can just walk away? Use your pretty little wife as an alibi while you play hero? FBI deal? Gabriel's jaw tightened. Get out. Or what? You'll have me killed like your mother? The words hung in the air like poison. I watched the color drain from Gabriel's face. My mother died in a car accident. Your mother was murdered because she threatened to expose Raymond's experiments on psychiatric patients. Victoria's smile was cruel. She had evidence, photos, documents, so he had her car tampered with. Gabriel's known for 3 years. I couldn't breathe. The room spun. Amelia, Gabriel reached for me, but I stumbled backward. Don't touch me. Please, let me explain. Explain what? My voice cracked. That our entire marriage is built on lies? That you've been using me as some kind of cover story? No. His eyes were desperate. It started as a contract, yes, but nothing. I was crying now, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. I defended you. I fell in love with you. I'm pregnant with your child, and it's all been a lie. The words escaped before I could stop them. Gabriel went rigid, his gaze dropping to my stomach. Victoria laughed. Oh, this is perfect. The poor artist knocked up by the crime lord's grandson. What a headline that'll make when the trials start. I ran, grabbed my keys and ran, ignoring Gabriel's shouts behind me. I drove blindly, rain starting to fall, mixing with my tears. Everything I thought I knew was shattering. The man I loved was a stranger, and I was carrying his child. Marcus found me at a roadside motel 3 hours north of the city, crying into a cup of cold coffee. May I? He gestured to the booth across from me. I nodded, too exhausted to refuse. Gabriel's losing his mind, he said quietly. He has half the state looking for you. Good. But my heart wasn't in it. Did you know? About his grandfather? Marcus sighed, suddenly looking older. I've been Gabriel's lawyer for 10 years, his friend for longer. Yes, I knew. Then you're all liars. We're all trying to survive. He pulled out a thick folder. This is what I gave you on your wedding day, plus everything else you need to know. The real story, not Victoria's poison. I stared at the folder like it might bite. Why should I trust you? Because in about 6 hours, Raymond Lawson is going to know you're pregnant. And when he does, you and that baby become either leverage or liability. Gabriel's trying to protect you the only way he knows how. My hand moved instinctively to my stomach. Tell me everything. The truth was worse than I'd imagined. Raymond Lawson had built an empire on suffering. Unauthorized drug trials in developing countries, bribes to officials, patients who died or disappeared. He'd faked his death to operate from the shadows when investigations got too close. Gabriel found out 3 years ago, Marcus explained. His mother had hidden evidence before she died. When he realized the extent of it, he went to the FBI. He's been gathering proof ever since, feeding them information. And me? You were never supposed to be part of it. Marcus's expression softened. The marriage contract was real. He did need to marry for the inheritance. But choosing you, a nobody from Queens with no connections to his world, that was him trying to keep someone innocent out of the crossfire. Fat lot of good that did. He fell in love with you. The words hung between us. Do you know how terrified he was? You were supposed to be safe, separate. Instead, you became everything. And in his world, that's a death sentence. A knock interrupted us. My heart leaped, thinking it was Gabriel, but a stranger entered. Tall, lean, with intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Aurelius Kane, FBI. He showed his badge. Mrs. Lawson, we need to talk. The next hour changed everything. Agent Kane laid out the case against Raymond, the evidence they'd gathered, the holes that remained. They were close, but not close enough. We need someone on the inside, Kane said. Someone Raymond won't suspect. You want to use me as bait. I want to give you the power to end this. His gaze was steady. Raymond's going to contact you soon. He'll try to turn you against Gabriel, use you to control him. Let him think he's succeeding. Absolutely not. Gabriel's voice cut through the room. He stood in the doorway, soaked from rain, looking haggard. "You're not putting her in danger." "I'm already in danger," I said quietly. His eyes met mine. So much pain there, I almost went to him. Almost. "Amelia, please, come home. We'll figure this out." "Home?" I laughed bitterly. "I don't have a home. I have a contract." He flinched like I'd slapped him. "You have my heart. You've had it since you stood in my office, terrified but refusing to beg. Since you painted my mother's eyes without ever having seen them. Since you told a room full of people I was worth saving. Don't." My voice broke. "Don't you dare make poetry out of lies. The only lie I told was thinking I could have you without destroying you." He moved closer, desperate. "Everything else, every kiss, every touch, every moment I watched you paint and couldn't breathe from wanting you, that was real." "The FBI operation?" Kane prompted, impatient. Gabriel's jaw clenched. "If you're asking her to risk herself, I'll do it." The words surprised everyone, including me. But on my terms. Over the next hour, we planned. I would return to Gabriel, let Raymond approach me, gather what evidence we could. Gabriel fought it every step, but I held firm. "You made choices to protect your family's victims," I told him. "Let me make mine." As we prepared to leave, Gabriel caught my arm. "The baby is none of your concern until this is over." His face crumpled. "Amelia, no." I pulled free. "You don't get to play protective husband now. We finish this, then we figure out what's left." The drive back was silent. But when Gabriel reached for my hand in the car, I let him take it. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a promise that we'd face the darkness ahead together, even if it destroyed us both. The warehouse in Newark smelled like rust and rain. Thunder rolled overhead as I faced the monster who'd haunted Gabriel's entire life. Raymond Lawson looked like death warmed over, gaunt, pale, but with eyes that burned with fanatic intensity. He sat behind a makeshift desk like a king holding court, Victoria at his right hand, Marcus at his left. My heart shattered, seeing Marcus there. He'd been playing all sides. "Mrs. Lawson," Raymond's voice was cultured poison. "So lovely to finally meet my grandson's acquisition." I forced myself to remain calm, knowing Gabriel and the FBI listened through the wire taped to my ribs. "You wanted to see me." "I wanted to offer you a choice." He gestured to a chair. I remained standing. "Your husband has been very naughty, working with federal agents, trying to destroy everything I built, everything that pays for your pretty dresses and that charming studio." "I know about the FBI," I said, sticking to the script. "He lied to me too." Raymond's smile was a blade. "Smart girl. Then you understand why you need a new benefactor. Divorce Gabriel. Publicly denounce him as a criminal who deceived you. In return, I'll ensure you and your child want for nothing." "And if I refuse?" He pulled out photographs, spreading them across the desk. My parents at their home, Ethan at college, Gabriel entering the FBI building. "Accidents happen," he said simply. "Your father already had one scare with that lawsuit. Your brother drives too fast. And Gabriel, well, he's always been too much like his mother." Speaking of which, he produced another photo. Gabriel's mother, bruised and terrified, being forced into a car. "She thought she could betray me too," Raymond continued. "Gathered evidence, threatened exposure. I gave her the same choice I'm giving you. She chose wrong." Rage boiled in my chest. This man had destroyed so many lives, all for power and profit. "You killed her." "I protected the family legacy." No remorse, just cold calculation. Gabriel would have done the same if he'd inherited my strength instead of her weakness. Love makes fools of men. "Yes," I said quietly. "It does." I pulled out my phone, showing him texts I'd exchanged with Victoria over the past week. Messages about Gabriel's FBI cooperation, his meeting times, the evidence he'd gathered. All fake, all fed by the Bureau, but convincing. "Your granddaughter-in-law has been very helpful," Raymond said, pleased. "You're more practical than I expected from an artist." "I'm a survivor." The words tasted like ash. "What do you need me to do?" "There's a meeting tomorrow night. Gabriel thinks he's delivering final evidence to the FBI. Instead, he'll have an accident. Tragic, but necessary. You'll be the grieving widow who discovers his betrayal. Shocked to learn your husband was involved in criminal enterprises. My hand moved to my stomach. And after? You'll be a very wealthy widow, free to raise your child away from this ugliness. I pretended to consider, then nodded. When and where? He gave me details, each word another nail in his coffin. The FBI was getting everything. Smart choice. Raymond stood, coming around the desk. You know, you remind me of her. Gabriel's mother, same spirit, but you're wiser. His hand touched my face. It took everything not to recoil. That's when I heard it, car engines getting closer. Marcus heard it too. His eyes widened, meeting mine with something like regret. Sir, we should... Going somewhere, grandfather? Gabriel stepped from the shadows, and my heart stopped. This wasn't the plan. He was supposed to wait outside with the FBI. Touching reunion, Raymond sneered, though short-lived. Everything happened at once. Marcus pulled a gun, but instead of aiming at us, he pointed it at Raymond. FBI, nobody move. You bastard! Victoria shrieked, lunging at him. The gun went off. I screamed, ducking as the bullet shattered a window. Gabriel rushed forward, tackling his grandfather as sirens wailed outside. You destroyed everything good in my life, Gabriel snarled, pinning the old man down. My mother, my childhood, any chance at normal. I made you strong. Raymond spat. Without me, you'd be nothing. Without you, I'd be human. FBI agents flooded in, weapons drawn. Kane at the lead, shouting orders. They pulled Gabriel off his grandfather, cuffing them both until they could sort things out. The wire got everything, I told Kane, pulling the device free. His confession about Gabriel's mother, the murder plans, all of it. As they led Raymond away, he laughed, a sound like breaking glass. This isn't over. I have friends everywhere. You'll never be safe. Gabriel broke free from the agents, rushing to me. Are you hurt? The baby... We're fine. I was shaking, adrenaline crashing. Why did you come in? That wasn't... I heard him touch you. His hands framed my face, eyes wild. I couldn't... I won't lose you, too. I collapsed against him, finally letting myself cry. It was over. The monster who'd terrorized him for decades was in custody. But Raymond's last words echoed. This isn't over. 8 months later, I stood in my old studio. Not the grand space in the Lawson estate, but my tiny apartment in Queens where everything began. Sunlight streamed through windows I'd once covered with newspaper to hide from debt collectors. Now they were clean, casting rainbow prisms across canvases waiting to be packed. You sure about this? Gabriel asked from the doorway, our daughter sleeping against his chest. 6-month-old Grace had his eyes, but my stubbornness, a combination that already ruled our lives completely. Watching him with her still made my heart ache with impossible tenderness. The museum wants the complete collection, I said, wrapping the last painting, the one of him trapped in shadows that had started everything. Even this one. Especially that one. He moved into the room, careful not to wake Grace. It's where you first saw me, really saw me. So much had changed since that night in the warehouse. Raymond's arrest had triggered an avalanche. Investigations, trials, a complete restructuring of Lawson Pharmaceutical. Gabriel had testified against his grandfather, revealing decades of crimes. The media frenzy nearly broke us, but we'd survived, together. Any regrets? I asked, securing the painting. He considered this, absently rubbing Grace's back when she stirred. I regret the lies, the danger I put you in, the pain. His eyes found mine. But not loving you. Never that. The Lawson fortune was mostly gone, seized by authorities or paid in settlements to Raymond's victims. Gabriel had kept just enough to establish a foundation for families affected by illegal drug trials. He worked there now, using his business acumen for healing instead of profit. We'd moved to a modest brownstone in Brooklyn. No marble floors or ocean views, but it had a garden where Grace could play and enough space for my studio. It felt like home in a way the estate never had. The lawyers called, Gabriel said carefully. The last of the lawsuits settled. We're officially free. Free. Such a simple word for something so complex. Victoria was in prison, having cut a deal for a lighter sentence. Marcus, who'd been undercover FBI for 2 years, occasionally visited, bringing updates on the remaining trials. Raymond would die behind bars, his empire of shadows finally dissolved. There's something else, Gabriel continued, shifting Grace to one arm and pulling out an envelope. This came for you. Inside was a single photograph. A young woman painting, her face turned toward the light. Gabriel's mother. How? Kane found it in Raymond's personal effects. Thought you should have it. I studied her face, seeing Gabriel in the curve of her smile, the determined set of her shoulders. Another artist trapped by the Lawson legacy, but she'd fought back, just like me. We should hang it in Grace's room, I decided, so she knows where she comes from. All of it, the darkness and the light. Gabriel pulled me close with his free arm, the three of us standing in a shaft of afternoon sun. What she'll know, he murmured against my hair, is that love can survive anything. That her parents chose each other against impossible odds. That beauty exists even in broken places. Grace woke then, gurgling happily and reaching for my paint-stained fingers. I let her grab them, not caring about the mess. There would be time for more paintings, more stories to tell through art. We should go, I said eventually. Mom's making dinner, and you know how she gets when we're late. My parents had forgiven the deception once they understood the full truth. Ethan was thriving in graduate school, free from the shadows that had nearly consumed our family. Sunday dinners were chaotic affairs now, full of laughter and arguments and Grace's delighted shrieks. As we locked up the apartment, I paused for last look. This space had witnessed my lowest moment, signing away my freedom to save my father. Now it would hold someone else's story, someone else's dreams. No looking back? Gabriel asked, reading my expression. Only forward. That night, after Grace was asleep and the dishes were done, I found Gabriel on our tiny balcony, sketching by moonlight. He'd started drawing again, tentatively, privately, but with growing confidence. What are you working on? He showed me. Our daughter's hands, perfectly captured in charcoal. You're getting good, I said, settling beside him. I have an excellent teacher. He set the sketch aside, pulling me close. Amelia? Marry me again, properly this time. No contracts, no lies, no threats hanging over us. Just you and me and Grace and whatever comes next. I thought about that girl who'd stood in his office years ago, terrified and desperate. How far we'd both come from that moment. Yes, I whispered. Forever, yes. In the distance, Manhattan glittered like a canvas of lights. But here in our small corner of the world, we had everything. Love, hope, and the promise of all the tomorrows we'd paint together. The shadows were finally behind us. Ahead lay only light.
If there's one thing my story taught me, it's this. Never trade your freedom for promises wrapped in gold. Love isn't a contract, and happiness built on lies will always collapse. Choose yourself first, because the right person will never make you bargain